coming and joining us. We've got a good core remnant here who have stuck with us the whole entire time. We've got just one lecture left after tonight, right? So, and some of you have probably been waiting for this one. This one's always a popular lecture. It's kind of a heavy subject. All right. So let's bow our heads for a word of prayer before we begin. Father in heaven, we ask for your presence to be here with us and guide our thoughts and our minds heavenward. Speak through my words. Translate my words to the hearts of the hearers, and I pray that you would bring the conviction and supply the power to make new choices that revamp our lifestyles. We want to bring our lives more into harmony with your will. I know everybody here wants to do that because they've already committed several times to doing that. And so I pray that you'd bless each step of faith, that you'd protect people as they make these changes, and that you'd give abundant blessing of health and strength. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. So, once again, I've got some websites here for you. These are our websites. The top one is our media website. I have a lot of videos on there, not just about health, also about wildlife and creation, evolution, lots of stuff like that. But and sermons. What's that? Oh, yep, that's right. Sorry about that. That was totally my fault. Oops. There we go. Okay. There's sermons, Bible topics, prophecy, creation, evolution materials on there, and health on the media website, and our books. Then the next one is kmhr.org. That's also KlondikeMountainHealthRetreat.org, which you could spell the whole thing out and it would still work. But that's the abbreviated version. That's the Health Retreat website. And that one has most of the health videos on that site. The health videos are also on the media site, but they're on the Health Retreat site. And then the last one is our clinic website, and that's a new one. And we're still working on getting that one going. That one is where this particular event is listed on there. That's where you would see the promo video for this event and stuff like that. But other than that, there's not much video on that website yet. So there are some videos that I'm going to want to refer you to watch still. You can always, well, let me ask you this. How many of you were here for the second night when we talked about the science of addictions? Anybody who was not here? Yes. Did you watch it yet?
No, I watched all the others
But that one, okay. All right. So be sure to catch up on that one. You can watch it on the church website, the church YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and type in Bloomington SDA Church. You'll find it there. There's also a version of that lecture, and I'm always updating it, so the one I gave you is the most updated, but there's a version of that lecture on the Health Retreat website and the media website called Toxic Gourmet. It's one that you're going to want to review because it's a lot of material, and you're going to be hard pressed to remember it all the first time through. Okay, and it relates very expressly to this subject tonight, the subject we're talking about tonight. So we're talking about weight management tonight, and I want you to take a look at this picture. Notice that she has two different types of foods on, one kind of food on her right hand and one kind of food on her left hand, right? So which kind of food would be healthier for her and be more likely to help her lose weight and give her longevity and all these kinds of things? Which one?
The
The one on her left, right? On her right. The one on her right, yeah? Now, it's interesting that it doesn't matter what walk of life you're in. It doesn't matter how rich or how poor you are, how educated or uneducated you are in this country. Practically anybody in this country, no matter what kind of background they are, or training they have or don't have, would be able to tell me that. Is that right? So you can see that the healthy foods are on her right, but yet she's being what? Tempted to the foods on her left. And the picture tells a story. So I'm not trying to imply that she has a weight problem. She doesn't look like it from her face, but most of her body's covered. So what I am trying to imply is that weight issues have to do with choices, yes, and seduction, addiction, right? And that's a big part of it. We've got a massive problem in this country. Childhood, and these are actually older statistics. It's hard to find statistics that go all the way up to current, but all the time. But look at this. This is childhood obesity levels between the 60s and 2004, which is now 20 years ago. And it went from about 4% in the 60s, which by the way would have been when RFK was a kid and his uncle was president. Remember those statistics he was spitting off? And there was no chronic disease. The obesity levels for kids were about 4%. That means about 4% of kids had a problem. And it ramped up to almost 30% by 2004. What do you think it is today? I'm quite certain it's broken through that 30% barrier for sure. I mean, who knows? It could be 50, 60%. I don't know for sure at this point. The overweight for adults was happening about a similar. This one doesn't go all the way back to the 60s because it's a different study. But you can see it's just trending up between the 80s and 2004. It has the same ending date. And we already saw a clue about where some of these diseases are coming from when we looked at the U.S. food consumption by calories. We saw this last night. 51% of the calories come from refined and processed foods in the average American diet. 42% from animal products and 7% from vegetables. Now, all of you told me, and you all agreed, that anybody should be able to tell the same thing. You all told me that it was the fruit that would make her healthy in comparison to the other stuff, right? But this is what we're doing. Can you see the problem? We don't want to eat the healthy food. People have this joke almost that they'll say, oh, well, if it's healthy, it's not going to taste good.
Yeah, which is not true.
That's totally not true. And if you think healthy food doesn't taste good at first, it's because your tastes are perverted. And over time, if you allow your taste buds to correct themselves, you'll find way more pleasure in eating than you ever did the unhealthy stuff. All right, so let's talk about weight loss and how to do it and what are some of the factors. So we're not going to spend too much time on macronutrients. A lot of weight loss programs are focused just on macronutrients. That's proteins, fiber, carbohydrates, and fats. Proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Those are macronutrients. Those are the macro means large, the things that we get the bulk of our calories from. It's actually the only things we get our calories from, really, except for alcohol. And hopefully none of us are getting our calories from alcohol here. So, a lot of weight loss programs are just focused on this, and we're not going to focus on this much, because I think that there's better ways of approaching it. But you do have to know a little bit about it, okay? So that's why we're going to spend a little bit of time right now. So carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram, same as protein. Proteins have 4 calories per gram. Fats have 9 calories per gram. That is more than double. So that means you can pack a lot of calories in a very small space when you're eating fats. That is important for you to know. Because if you pack yourself full of fats, you're going to be eating way more calories than if you pack yourself full of carbohydrates or proteins. Is that clear? So we did talk about how not all proteins are created equal, and we're going to come back to that tonight. But on a fundamental level right here, if you're eating a lot of fat, it's going to cause weight gain. Now you can get some paradoxical weight loss with some of these type of diets, like an Atkins type of diet, because you're forcing your body into ketosis, but that's really not a good way to lose weight. It's actually dangerous. It's dangerous to your kidneys, especially. It's dangerous to your heart because of the ketosis. And it's all the rage right now to say that ketosis is a good thing. And I think that that's just a fad that goes along with these diets that are pushing the low-carb diets. So the other thing you need to know is that alcohol has 7 calories per gram. That's not quite as high as fat, but it's almost double carbohydrates and proteins, right? So when you're drinking alcohol, people who are alcoholic, they get massive amounts of calories from the alcohol, but they get almost no nutrients. So they literally go into complete nutritional collapse. And they'll come into the emergency room, for example, with Korsakoff, Wernicke's encephalopathy, or Korsakoff syndrome, or things like this, which are serious B1 deficiencies. And in the ERs, they actually have B1 that they can inject into the veins, and that's usually what they're using vitamin B1 for. In the ER is to bring these people out of this brain swelling state that they're in because they're so low in their B1 because they're getting all their calories from alcohol. So alcohol puts on a tremendous amount of calories. Not only does it put on a tremendous amount of calories that have no nutritional value, but it also reduces your body's ability to burn fat by 30%. So if you want to lose weight, do not drink alcohol. There's many reasons not to drink alcohol, and I'm not giving a lecture on alcohol during this time, but alcohol is severely damaging to your body. Your brain, your liver, every part of your body is damaged by alcohol. Not a good plan. And I have a whole lecture about alcohol, by the way, speaking about videos on my website. I have a sermon about alcohol that you would probably be interested to see. I'd love for you to hear it. And if you go to my media website, click on the full disclosure tab, and then that one causes a bunch of extra sermons to appear on the side. Okay? And then down on the right-hand side, there's a sermon, Alcohol in the Bible. And it goes through the very specific things. People don't understand today what the Bible says about alcohol. And they misunderstand, and they misinterpret it on purpose because they want to justify drinking alcohol. Many people say that they think that Jesus made alcohol, so that makes it justified. You're going to find out that there's lots of different words for alcohol in the Bible. I did a really, really deep dive into alcohol in the Bible, how alcohol is produced, and all of the different ramifications for it. So that's a really, really good resource for you. So I hope you can take a look at that. But if you're trying to lose weight, you don't want to drink alcohol because it's going to reduce your body's ability to burn fat. This is why they get what we call a beer belly, because the alcohol soaks into the tissue right around the stomach first, and that's where the fat builds up, because you can't lose it right there. All right, enough from macronutrients for now. Let's talk about micronutrients. So there's all kinds of micronutrients. There's just hundreds and even thousands of them. This is just a sampling. How many of you have ever thought about boron? How much boron you're getting in your diet? A couple of you maybe have thought of it, but mostly not, right? How many of you have thought about how much cobalt is in your diet? You ever thought about that? What about manganese? Molybdenum? So all of these are different minerals that we need in trace amounts that we can get from our food, usually, hopefully. And we usually pay almost no attention to them. There's also your vitamins. There's your vitamin A, your vitamin, that's beta carotene, your vitamin Bs. And if you want to try to remember your B's, I'll give you a cute little acronym. I made it up. I told you I grew up in Africa, right? So this has got an African flavor to it. This is how it goes. The rhino's nose points partly back for cuteness. Isn't that great? The rhino's nose points partly back for cuteness. Now you have to remember it's nose, not horn. So don't forget that. Okay, so that stands for thiamine, rhino, riboflavin, nose, niacin, points, pantothenic acid, 2 P's, partly, pyridoxine, back, biotin, 4, folic acid, cuteness, cobalamin. Now you can remember the names of your B's, right? You just have to remember that there's no B4 and no B8. Okay? You skip B4 and B8, and then you skip everything from 9 to 12, which means 10 and 11. Okay. Then you've got your vitamin C, your ergocalciferol, cholecalciferol, that's your D2 and D3, your vitamin E's, your vitamin K, phenyloquinone, and menaquinones, your lycopenes. Then you start going into phytochemicals, lycopenes, quercetin, dilapyl. Isn't that great? Dilapyl, you get a dilapyl from a pile of dill. It's a phytochemical in dill. Resveratrol, all these different things. Lycopene is what makes tomatoes red, right? Resveratrol is what's supposed to be in grapes. There's some evidence that that was actually a complete bogus study that was made up by somebody who was trying to promote wine. Look at this. Look at all these beautiful colors and textures and smells and tastes. All of that is all these different micronutrients that are making up those colors and textures. And by the way, I just named a few, not even half a dozen, of phytochemicals. Phyto means plant. So phytochemical is a plant chemical. There are thousands, probably even millions of chemicals in plants. Certainly millions. Just the anti-inflammatory, antioxidant sulfur compounds in garlic are listed here. Just the anti-inflammatory, antioxidant sulfur components of garlic, just garlic, are there. I'm not going to read them all. Can you believe that? There are so many different chemicals in that food. There's chemicals in that food that aren't particularly anti-cancer, but when you start to chew them and the enzymes in your mouth start to break them down, they actually literally start to have a chemical reaction in your mouth that creates chemicals that are anti-cancer compounds. You're literally, by chewing your food properly, making anti-cancer compounds in your mouth when you're chewing plant foods. Can you believe that? That's right, fearfully and wonderfully made. Unbelievable. Why are we talking about this? We're talking about weight loss, right? Well, when you eat all the things that your body needs, then it doesn't have to crave things it doesn't need. It's going to be less likely, at least, to crave things that it doesn't need. It doesn't mean that everything bad for you will be totally non-addictive just because you have good nutrients. But it's going to be much less of a struggle to get off an addiction when you're giving your body what it needs. Is that clear? Here's what they found with vegetables and lung cancer. They said the risk of lung cancer for those who seldom consume vegetables was about twice of that among those who consume vegetables frequently. Double the risk. Now, why do most people get lung cancer? Smoking. You can get lung cancer from radon. We won't talk about that right now, but most people get lung cancer from smoking, and here we're finding out that that means these people are probably still smoking, right? The ones who are getting lung cancer, but they're eating a lot of vegetables, and they have half the amount of lung cancer. Literally, the vegetables is protecting them from lung cancer. You've probably heard of somebody who lived to be 99 or 100 years old and they smoked every day of their life, right? And people say, See? No, see what? Imagine how old they would have lived if they hadn't smoked. Probably would have made a world record. Because they obviously had some other good habits. Like exercise, by the way. Not exercising is considered about as powerful a risk factor for cancer as smoking. That's pretty serious.
I don't believe that.
You don't? Yeah, it's true.
I smoked for 40 years.
Yeah?
I know what it brings. I've had lung cancer,
Yeah?
but lung cancer is caused by a lot of things, not just tobacco.
Well, that's true. Lung cancer can be caused by other things than tobacco.
I sat behind a John Deere tractor, breathing those fumes.
That's not good for you, for
I had
sure.
pneumonia. I had lots of leaks on that. That causes cancer.
Yep.
There's a lot of things cause cancer.
Yeah,
Not just
that's
smoking.
true. Lots of,
I'm not proud that I smoked. I quit.
well, good. Praise the Lord.
I was several years ago.
That's good. That's a huge accomplishment.
There's a lot of things cause cancer. Not just-
And the risk of cancer drops down dramatically as soon as you stop smoking. Doesn't mean you could never get lung cancer still, but the risk goes way down.
One of the things though about smoking, and I used to smoke, so I can say that, is that the epithelium lay down as soon as they start getting that smoke in there, and that's one of the greater factors in the lung cancer, because the protection that you have naturally in the lungs for the other risk factors, it is there all the time when you smoke, right? That's what they have. But as soon as you stop, they begin to stand up again, right?
Yep. All right, let's look at this. I showed you this slide. I showed you this slide probably twice already, I think. A diet to stop smoking. Look at this. 6 months, this was published in the Southern Medical Journal. 6 months on a fresh fruit and vegetable diet, 62% raw by calories. That's quite a bit of raw food. Produced an 8-pound weight loss and an 18-millimeter decrease in blood pressure. I think they were expecting that. But they said serendipitously, that means surprisingly, pleasantly surprised, right? Shockingly, 80% of those in this study who smoked or drank abstained spontaneously. They quit without trying. That is because they are filling themselves with all kinds of nutrients that are good for them. And so the cravings can go down. Also, what else are you going to do when you eat 62% raw by calorie and you're on fresh fruits and vegetables? What else are you going to do without even knowing about it? Huh? Chew a lot, yes, you'll lose weight, but there's something else you're getting away from. Excitotoxins. Even if you don't even know about excitotoxins, you start going on to a fresh fruit and vegetable diet, you're automatically away from excitotoxins, right? Even though you might not know that connection. But you have the knowledge to know that now you have some even more powerful tool than most people, right? Because you know what that connection is. So did you know that it's possible to eat more and weigh less? It's possible to eat more and weigh less. Now, I don't want you to misunderstand me here. I am not telling you to overeat, even on good food, okay? That's not a good plan. And one of the reasons is when you overeat habitually, even on good food, you stretch your stomach bigger. And one of the mechanisms, as we're going to talk in a moment, for telling you that you're full, satiety, is stretch receptors in the stomach. And so if you stretch your stomach out, you're not going to think you're full until you fill it every time, which means you're now going to be filling it with more food every time, right? So over time, stretching out your stomach is going to cause problems. It's not good to overeat on anything, even good food. But I'm focusing here a little bit on the idea that we want you to be able to lose weight without thinking that you're being super deprived or, starving to death. Okay? And so it is possible. People come to the retreat and they sometimes people who are overweight especially, they've really done a lot with portion control and they really try hard to not eat too much food. And so they come to our table And we like eat a lot, and they're looking at us like, oh. And then they're not too sure that they can eat that much, but they eat more maybe than what they're used to, and they're like absolutely convinced they haven't lost a bit of weight. They're like, there's no way I've lost weight. I've been eating like a horse. And they get to the end of the program, and they see the scale, and they lost weight. And that's because not all calories are created equal. The least active Chinese in the China study, equivalent to office workers, ate 30% more calories. More calories! And had 20% less body weight than average Americans. This is one of the reasons why we don't get too much into the emphasis of calorie counting. Okay? Now, sometimes, like with any addiction, when someone has a food addiction, they start to be a bit dishonest with themselves. They can. And sometimes they're in a bit of denial as to how much they eat. So it could be useful for a period of time to count some calories, just to try to get a sense of what are you really doing, what are you really putting in your mouth. But in general, that's not what we focus on with weight loss in this program, because if you could count up your calories and you could be eating a bunch of bad calories that are going to make you gain weight anyway, even though you're eating little calories, or you could eat a whole bunch of good calories and count up more calories and actually still lose weight, you see? So when you give your body stuff that it knows is food, it says, aha, I know what to do with this. And it uses it for energy. So it doesn't store it. But when you give your body stuff that it doesn't know is food, like a McDonald's hamburger, the body says, we don't know what to do with this. We'll just store it in the fat bank. Right? And so it just tucks it away, doesn't use it, because it's not what it needs. It's not what it wants. It's not what it's looking for. All right. Let's develop this a little bit more. How would you like for your digestive process to be part of your exercise program? Would that be good? Like digestion to help you lose weight? Watch this. This is a scientific article here. It says, the title is Postprandial Energy Expenditure in Whole Food and Processed Foods Meals, Implications for Daily Energy Expenditure. This is what they found. They found that it took a lot more energy to digest whole food than processed food. Did you ever think about the fact that your digestion actually uses energy? Well, of course it does. Your body has to process the food, and that takes energy. And that energy comes from the food. Probably not the food from that meal, but the food from previous meals. And so, if you eat whole foods like God made them, it's going to take more energy to digest them, and therefore you're burning more calories in the process of digestion than if you eat stuff that's pre-digested? Yeah, you know, when the factory processes it so much, it's like pre-digestion. It's broken down for you. It's like those wild dogs in Africa that run out and hunt, and then they gorge themselves with meat and come back to feed the pups, right? Pre-digested. You don't want to eat pre-digested food. Fred?
Now, is that also true because most of the whole foods you got to take a little more time to chew. You can't just swallow them and get anything. So digestion starts in the mouth, right?
Yes, yes.
So does it include that?
Sure,
Okay.
sure, that's part of it.
All right.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about how the body tells us we're full, okay? So I already mentioned that we have stretch receptors in our stomach that help tell us we're full. So if we can put something in our stomach that would stretch the stomach without having a lot of calories, we'd be really on our way to losing weight and not being hungry. Is that right? Because the stretching of the stomach would tell us, I'm satisfied, but you'd be filling it with little calories, and so you could be losing weight while feeling full. Does that sound like a good plan? How do we do that? We do that with fiber. So if we look at this, you're going to feel way more full if you eat a whole apple than if you eat only the juice from just one apple. Now, I don't know exactly the volume of juice that would come from one apple, but I'm sure it's not very much. It's probably a couple of ounces, maybe 3 ounces, right? So think about drinking just that amount of apple juice versus eating that whole apple. Which one's going to make you feel more full? The apple. Which one's going to take more energy to digest? The apple. So, you can feel more full for longer. What's the difference between apple and apple juice? The main difference? Fiber. Fiber. The apple juice has had the fiber taken out of it. So, many people who are trying to lose weight or diabetics struggle with portion control. Fiber is a key to portion control. So let's take an example of potato chips. If you take a serving of potato chips, it's 56 grams, which is not very much. It's 2.6 grams of fiber, not very much fiber. 304 calories. Is that a meal? No, that's not a meal. I mean, you'll eat that while you're preparing for the meal, and you'll think you haven't even sat down yet, right? Now you go to the French fries, and you've got now twice as much food, 100 grams. You've got a little bit more fiber, not much, and you still got a lot of calories, but it's less than the chips. But it's still a bomb. Are you satisfied? Is that a meal yet? No, you're still a long ways from a meal. You haven't even started the meal, right? You're eating the chips while you're waiting for them to bring the meal, if you're going to a restaurant. Now you go to a whole baked potato with skin. Now you've got 4 times the amount of food as with the chips, twice as much as the French fries, 4.8 grams of fiber, much, much better, and still barely more calories than the French fries, and way less calories than the chips. You see the difference? Well, there's 2 differences actually. One is what? Fiber. The other one is fat. The potato, you know how much how much fat is in a potato chip by percentage of calories? An average potato chip, they vary. But 61% fat. 61% fat. The French fries, yeah, probably is more than French fries. I don't know off the top of my head. That's the percentage of fat by calories. That's not the number of calories in a serving. That's the percentage of fat by calories. Do you know how much percentage of fat by calories is in a potato?
12.
1% fat. A potato chip is not a potato. A potato chip is a bunch of fat held together with a little potato starch. Yeah. Let's look at energy density here. Here's 400 calories of oil in a stomach. Here's 400 calories of beef in a stomach. Here's 400 calories of vegetables in a stomach. Which one's going to make you full? Only the vegetables. Which one? And those are the same amount of calories in each case, right? So if you fill your stomach with beef, you're going to way overeat calorically. Way overeat calorically. Lack of fiber is also related to all kinds of different problems, besides the fact that fiber can help you lose weight and help give you this bulk. But there's no calories in fiber. Did you know that? It doesn't get digested. It comes out the other end. Does that mean we don't need it? No, it's very, very important. Look how many things are related to lack of fiber. Constipation, colon cancer, heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke, varicose veins, hemorrhoids. Hemorrhoids are from lack of fiber. It's because you're straining on the toilet. If you don't have enough fiber, you've got to strain because you have constipation. The straining pushes pressure on the veins, not only in the anus, which causes and the rectum, which causes the hemorrhoids, but it also puts pressure on the veins in your legs, which cause varicose veins. It also puts pressure not just on the veins in the legs and the veins in the rectum, but it puts pressure on the walls of the intestines. And when you get a hernia in the side of the intestine from all that extra pressure, that's called diverticulosis. When that gets inflamed and infected, it's called diverticulitis. It's from lack of fiber. All of these problems are from lack of fiber. Even heartburn. Fiber is very, very, very important. Where do you get fiber from? How much fiber in beef?
0.
How much fiber in pork? Sheep? Chickens? There is no fiber in any animal product. Remember, the animal products had all the cholesterol? Well, the plant products have all the fiber. You only have fiber. The only fiber in an animal product would be if you get it from the contents of the intestine, which is not entirely impossible, because things like hot dogs and sausages and things like that, they grind up a whole lot of stuff that you don't want to know about. And the old-fashioned way of making those hot dogs would be to inject that ground up meat inside an intestine, which may or may not be washed out properly, and then twist it at the ends, which is why it had that little crimpy thing at the ends, right? Yeah. Fiber is only found in plant foods, and it's found in whole plant foods. All whole plant foods have fiber. Now you can take most of the fiber out of a plant food, right? How much fiber in olive oil? Pretty much 0, very little. How much fiber in apple juice? Almost 0, same thing, right? You might have a little bit of fiber in some orange juice, because if you have it with the pulp. But in your whole foods, look at how much fiber is in a pear. 7.1 grams. We used to do a community-based health class at our local hospital. And we had access to all the diabetics and all the heart disease patients in the county, or at least who had ever registered in the hospital. And we invited them to these classes. And we'd teach them these things. And it was amazing to see what they would do. It was just absolutely, they were so excited about it. Some would hear the first couple lectures and they'd be out of there. I'm not doing that, right? And it was funny though, because we still had access to their medical records, and we could actually do statistical analysis on the medical records. Even those people who came for 1 or 2 classes and never came back again because they didn't want to do what we were saying, they still improved their blood sugars and their blood cholesterols. It's like they couldn't get it out of their head. Now that's a good thing if you're putting in good information, but what if you're putting in bad information? What if somebody's brainwashing you with something that's not good, right? If you're hearing stuff that's, even if you don't agree with it, it still affects you. Be careful what you hear. Anyway, my point with that story was to tell you that we did a dietary inventory with them when they first came in, and we'd have them tell us everything that they'd eaten in the last 24 to 48 hours. And then we'd have them look up all the fiber content of each one. You know that we routinely saw our patients would routinely, almost always have less than 5 grams of fiber per day. Per day. No wonder they had diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diverticulosis, and varicose veins. No wonder. How much should you have? Well, the American Heart Association says 30 grams, but that's still a standard American diet. You're going to get heart disease on the American Heart Association diet. I hate to say it. The American Diabetes Association, they're getting a little out there on a limb. They say you should have 50 grams a day. Harvard says 38 grams. My wife and I eat a totally plant-based diet, and so we get a lot of fiber. A lot of it's unprocessed foods. And we've tried to estimate how much fiber. We think we probably get between maybe 80 and 100 grams a day, at least. So fiber is key to weight loss because it gives you no calories and it fills you up. So you don't have to be hungry, and you can still lose weight. Let's look at the foods without fiber. These are your animal products that don't have fiber. And now notice that without fail, the foods that don't have fiber have massive amounts of fat. So there's two problems. Look at how much fat is in there. The leanest beef is 46% fat, almost half fat. The regular beef is 68% fat. That's an insane amount of fat. The ham, the lean ham, 34%, the regular ham, 61%, the bologna, 80% fat. Cheddar cheese, 78% fat. Cottage cheese, 18% fat, that's 2%. Whole milk is 48% fat. Skim milk, 10%, that's quite a bit down there. Most people don't like it though, because it doesn't have the fat in it. Cream cheese, 91% fat. You may as well eat Vaseline. Butter, of course, obviously butter and margarine are 100% fat. Fish, salmon is 45% fat. So notice all these foods that have no fiber are very high in fat. So that's a double whammy. You don't get the fiber, so you don't feel full, plus you get a whole pile of fat, which means now you are way over calorically what you should be, and it's hard to lose weight. Here are the foods with fiber. Notice how much lower they are. Now obviously this is leaving out the four main plant foods that are high in fat. Okay, coconut, nuts, avocados, and olives. Those are the high fat plant foods, and they are definitely higher. But for the vast majority of plant foods, look how low they are. Oatmeal, 12%. Apple, 2.2%. Potato, 1%. Broccoli, 20%. Pasta, 5%. Rice, 9%. Corn, 7%. They make corn oil and it's only 7% fat. You'd think they would start farming broccoli for fat, right? Make broccoli oil? Pinto beans, 4%. Silver Hills bread, 8%. So your plant foods have got way low fat and high fiber. So you're dramatically reducing the caloric load, and you're giving your body all those phytonutrients from all those beautiful colors and tastes and textures and smells that God put in there for you to enjoy. So the idea is to eat like an ox instead of eating the ox, right? In one study, for 2 years, the individuals on a vegan diet lost 3.5 times more weight than those that were on a low-fat, non-vegan diet. Very effective for weight loss, for the reasons we just said. In a study of people 65 people, this was a smaller study, ages 35 to 70, it was called the Broad Study in New Zealand. Researchers found that those on a whole food plant-based diet were able to lose on average 26.7 pounds in 6 months compared to the usual care. That's a pretty good average, because some would be losing more and some less, right? Here's what they found. Whoops. Here's what they found. This is that statistic right there, pretty much. They found that the ones who were on, they gave these people the same calories, but they had calories coming from 2 different sources. So they had sort of a low-calorie omnivore diet, and they had a vegan diet. And look at the omnivores, they were basically not losing anything. But the vegans were going down in weight. And some people start thinking, if I'm going to eat only plants, where did I get my protein from? Did anybody miss the lecture on Saturday afternoon? A couple of you missed it? Okay, we talked about that. You want to catch that up on the YouTube, the church's YouTube channel. That's a very important one. We talked about proteins, and we talked about what the Bible says about clean and unclean meats. And we talked about plant protein versus animal protein, because there's a big difference. Just like not all calories are different, not all calories are the same, is what I meant to say. Same thing, not all proteins are the same. So we can answer this question partly by asking another question. Well, where does an elephant get his protein from? You see how the vast majority of our society today is not even thinking rationally. They're not even thinking logically. They think, oh, you gotta have protein. You gotta get protein from animals. You can't get protein from plants. Well, that's just absurd. I mean, even people who are vegetarian don't understand this. There's protein in everything. There's protein in bananas. I'm going to have a quiz now. I've already had this quiz once before, but I want to make sure you get this. At what stage of life are the protein needs the greatest? Infant. At the time when the need for protein is the greatest, how much protein did God put in mother's breast milk? 5.8%. I'm glad to hear some of you are remembering it now. Good. 5.8%. You think God made a mistake? No, it's just that the whole entire society is out of sync with what God knows. God made our bodies. He knows. And by the way, the protein in cow's milk is way higher. I think it's like 20%. Don't quote me for sure on that, because it's been a while since I looked it up. I should put it in my lecture notes. So cow's milk is made for baby cows. It's made to grow them from a little tiny baby cow to a huge bull in 18 months. Right? You don't want your kid to grow like that in 18 months. You want your kid to have time to develop their brain, right? The farmer doesn't care about the cow's brain. He doesn't care about the cow's IQ. He just cares about how quickly that cow grows. And so there is 5% protein in a banana. That's almost as much as mother's milk. In a banana. A peach is 9.5%. An apricot is 12% protein. It is not possible for you to be protein deficient unless you are starving or only eating the same plant food every single day. If you eat enough variety and enough calories, there has never been a demonstrated case of protein deficiency. It's a myth. We push this idea of protein in our society as if it's the sacred cow. No pun intended. I just thought that up. I thought you might like that. Here, look at this. I showed you this yesterday, or 2 days ago. It's easy to get the protein you need from plant foods. Here, your spinach is 49% protein. Your broccoli is 45% protein. Kale, 45% protein. There's more protein in a tomato than there is in a peanut. The Bible says you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Yes, we've been taught a lot of things in our lives that are not true. This is a very important slide, and I don't think I have showed you this one yet, so I'm glad to come to this one. This shows you the power of micronutrients and the power of a plant-based diet. In this particular study, they compared equal parts of tomato, spinach, lima beans, peas, and potatoes with equal parts of beef, pork, chicken, and whole milk. And they looked at the nutrients in those two types of diets. Obviously, one is a plant-based food, the other is animal-based foods. This is what they found. All the cholesterol, of course, was in the animal foods. You don't want that. Your body can make it. You don't need to eat it. Almost all the fat was in the animal foods. 36 grams versus 4 grams. Look at the protein. The protein is almost exactly the same. But we found out on Saturday afternoon that the protein, animal and plant protein, are not the same, right? And so the things, you don't get the problems from the plant protein that you get from the animal proteins. So you're not going to be protein deficient on the plant-based diet. Look at this. Beta-carotene. 29,000 versus 17. All the fibers in the plant foods, none in the animal foods. Vitamin C, 293 versus 4. Folate, 1,168 versus 19. Vitamin E, 11 versus 0.5. Iron. Now, what do people say you're supposed to get your iron from? Red meat, right? 20 grams of iron in the plants and 2 grams of iron in the animal foods. Where do you think the cow gets his iron from? Magnesium. 548 versus 51. Calcium. Twice as much calcium in the plants as in the animals. So if you want to insist on eating a nutrient-deficient diet, an animal-based diet is for you. If that's what your goal is to be completely devoid of good nutrients, or almost devoid of nutrients, eat the animal-based diet. All the nutrients, all the micronutrients, everything that your body needs to build an organism healthy is in the plants, not in the animals. And the animals are getting it from the plants. All right, let's talk about some more tricks for weight loss here. There's a bunch of different clues, and when you're done with this, you're going to have lots of tools for weight loss, okay? This is the European Journal of Diabetes. It's called Diabetologia. And there's actually a lady who is a physician and a PhD researcher. She works for Dr. Neil Barnard in Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. Her name is Hanna Kaliova. She is a Seventh-day Adventist. And she has done a lot of research, and she's actually got a lot of her research ideas from the Spirit of Prophecy. She says, wonder why she said that. Let's see how that works. And she does this research, and it's very, very interesting what she has published. And many of her articles are published in this journal. She's got other articles published in American journals, but this is some of the things she found. This is absolutely amazing because it goes totally against what you'll hear from the doctor. Here's what they did. They put people on the same diet, the same amount of calories, only in one group they gave them 6 meals a day, and in the other group they gave them 2 meals a day. And the ones who got the 6 meals a day they were on the same good food. So they were going to lose weight, right? They lost 5 pounds. Yay for them. But the ones who were on 2 meals a day lost 8 pounds. 8 pounds. The same food, the same amount of food. Is that amazing? So your doctor, if you go to your doctor and you're diabetic, you know what he's going to tell you? He's going to tell you to eat a whole bunch of meals. Now you know where that came from? It came out of thin air. It did. Nobody actually researched that. It was just a hypothesis, and they thought, if your body is like a conveyor belt processing food, and you dump the food on in a bunch of little dumps, you're going to have less spikes of food, right? The spikes are going to be lower, and the amount of food will be more even. Is that right? That's right. But the thing is, your body's not a conveyor belt. Your body's not a conveyor belt. It's not an inanimate object. It's a living organism that's responding to what you're doing. It's a living organism that needs a rest because it's tired of digesting food. So this was a theory that if you eat lots of small meals, you'll have less blood sugar highs. It's a theory that is absolutely 100% completely and utterly wrong. Watch this. This is what I just told you here, the weight loss. The 6 meals versus the 2 meals. The people who ate the 2 meals a day had more weight loss even though they were eating the same stuff. But look at the liver fat. The liver fat did the same thing. The ones who ate 6 meals a day lost less liver fat, and the ones who ate 2 meals a day lost the most liver fat. Again, these people are been put in this study on the same food, same amount of food. Guess who is most depressed? What do people do when they're depressed? Eat. And they eat what? All the time, right? Look at this. Are they eating because they're depressed, or are they depressed because they're eating? The ones who had 6 meals a day, they got a little less depressed because they were now on a good diet, right? But the ones who ate only 2 meals a day, they got a lot less depressed. Their depression dropped way down in comparison to the ones who are eating 6 meals a day. Who is the most hungry? The ones who are eating all the time. Can you believe that? People think they're eating because they think they need to eat because they're hungry. But the ones who ate 2 meals a day had way less hunger than the ones who ate 6 meals a day. Do you want to lose weight and not be hungry? Anybody? You're all quiet. Let me ask the question again. Do you want to lose weight and not be hungry? Yes. All right. So I've given you several tools to do that. Let's recap for just a moment. Get off excitotoxins, right? That was a previous lecture. The excitotoxins are an appetite stimulant. They make you hungry when you're not hungry. It's almost impossible to lose weight without getting off excitotoxins anyway. We actually had a patient that was almost 400 pounds. And when I talked to him about coming to the retreat, he said, I just want to tell you, just don't talk to me about weight loss. He said, I've gone all over the world, I've done everything that there is to lose weight, and I can't lose weight. So, it's not going to happen. You know, when he was done with our program, you know what he said? He says, I've never been able to lose weight like this before in my life. I said, do you know why you're losing weight now? Because you're off excitotoxins.
I got a question.
Yes.
Now, you're saying people eating 6 meals a day versus people eating 2 meals a day?
Yes.
I remember when I was in high school in health class, my teacher then said a body has to rest between meals.
That's right.
For the food to digest.
Yes.
So the people eating 6 meals, they don't get a chance, their body don't get a chance to rest.
That's right.
I don't understand what you're trying to prove here. Because
What
the one not just eating 2 meals has plenty of rest. And the
Yes.
other ones, there's no rest between.
Right.
And they're not,
What
they're
I'm-
not digesting.
Yes, I am trying to prove that the 2 meals is better than the 6 meals. So, I apologize if that wasn't clear. You do need that rest, absolutely. And your stomach needs to rest in between meals. And what people are often feel like is hunger is actually exhaustion of the stomach organs. So they eat so often, and by the way, eating is any time you put anything in your mouth besides water. Did you hear me say that? Eating is anything in your mouth besides water. Anything in your mouth that has to be digested. Water doesn't have to be digested. So if you drink a glass of orange juice, that's an extra meal. If you eat a couple nuts, that's an extra meal. So that means that you're forcing your body now to start digesting all over again. And if the previous food isn't digested, and you put something new in, then the previous food starts to rot in your stomach. And it produces toxic byproducts that are now going to contribute to colon cancer. It's going to ferment. So your stomach needs to have about 5 hours rest between meals, ideally. So when you feel hungry, I'm not saying you're never ever going to be hungry when you're trying to lose weight, okay? I don't want you to misunderstand. I am trying to tell you that you don't have to be like on some kind of a starvation diet where you're just famished. So if you start feeling hungry and you know it's not time to eat, it means you are dehydrated. Drink some water, the feeling of hunger will go away. It might take 10, 15 minutes, it will go away. Drink water when you're not supposed to eat yet. So I'm also trying to tell you that having less meals per day is more healthy. It's more healthy for your stomach because it can get to rest. And it will help you feel less hungry. So how do you lose weight without hunger? Get off excitotoxins. Eat less meals per day. Make sure you drink plenty of water in between. And look at how this meal thing actually happens. They actually did, this is published scientific study here. This is in the Journal of Nutrition. And again, this is Hanna Kaliova. Notice that the ones who are eating the 6 meals a day, their body mass index is going up. They're not going to lose weight like that. And right about the 3-meal mark is where it kind of crosses over, where you just kind of maintain. And when you go down to the 2 meals a day, then your body mass is going negative. Now you're losing weight. We don't particularly recommend 1 meal a day. Obviously here, 1 meal a day lost even more weight than 2 meals a day. You can do that once in a while as an intermittent fast if you want to, and I'll show you how to do intermittent fasting. That's very good for weight loss. But I wouldn't do 1 meal a day on a regular basis. You need the energy, and you should eat 2 meals a day. And you don't want to get to the point where your meal is like you have so much time between your meal that you're just overstuffing yourself in your 1 meal a day. Because that's going to defeat the point too, because you're going to stretch your stomach out, eat too much. All right, look at this one. Those that consumed breakfast, they could, on this particular diet, they put them on the diet, okay? They gave them the number of calories, and the ones who ate it for breakfast, or a good portion of it for breakfast, they could lose weight. And the ones who didn't eat anything for breakfast, they could not lose weight. Same number of calories, same food. If you want to lose weight, you need to eat breakfast. Breakfast is when you're waking up. It's when your body needs energy. Your body needs to have something then to take it through the day. If you don't get breakfast, the metabolism throttles down because it says, hey, there's no food coming. I better be careful what I burn. And then you're going to have a hard time burning fat because your metabolism has throttled down. You need breakfast. Look at this. This was the timing of the largest meal. The ones who had the highest body mass index were those who had the largest meal for dinner. The ones who had the lowest body mass index were the ones who had the largest meal for breakfast. Breakfast should be the largest meal. We've got it backwards. Satan's got the whole entire society backwards on almost everything, because he knows that these little things will derange the whole thing so people don't have any more self-control and they get out of control, and he's got them in his trap. Dinner should be the lightest meal if you eat anything at all. Now this isn't necessarily, I'm not saying that you have to only ever eat 2 meals a day. 2 meals a day is probably ideal for most Americans because most Americans have fairly sedentary lives. There are people who are working very hard and they're spending massive amounts of energy, and they may need to eat 3 meals a day. Although I have seen that it's more a matter of habit than anything, and even people who are expending massive amounts of energy can still eat 2 meals a day and be fine. But it's not a hard and fast rule. I'm just telling you, this is one of the keys for losing weight. And losing weight without being hungry all the time. People that come to our retreat, they're just absolutely amazed. I ask them after the first couple of days, how's your hunger level? Are you doing okay? Are you starving to death? And they're just amazed. I'm amazed. I go the whole entire day because we eat at 8:30 in the morning and 3:30 in the afternoon at the retreat. It's okay if that's a bit shifted earlier. If you have an earlier job or something, eat at 7 and eat at 1 or 2. But ideally, you want to have 5 hours between each meal and 5 hours after the last meal before bed. That's ideal. That's so that all the food gets digested before the next meal or before bed. And if you calculate that out, you're going to have to start really early if you're going to eat 3 meals a day. Okay? And you want to have that spacing. Yes?
These people come to your ranch or wherever
Yes.
you go to these things, now do they do work there? As far as, I mean, you're adjusting your meals, you're talking about,
Yeah.
you know, you gotta have energy. I mean, I know that, I'm almost 80 years old.
Yeah.
I know that I eat breakfast. My dad said you have to eat breakfast because your brain's waking up.
That's
your
right.
body's breaking.
That's good
You gotta
advice.
eat breakfast. And he said you ate breakfast at 7:30 in the morning.
Mhm.
I mean, every day, doesn't matter
Mhm.
what.
It's ideal to keep your meals
Then he put
at the
us to
same
work.
time.
Then we put us to work at 9 or 10 o'clock.
Mhm.
We worked, in summertime, we worked in the garden or
Mhm.
whatever. And as I grew older, I ate the same way. I ate 3 meals a day
Mhm.
because I was out putting up hay. I had used a
Yeah.
tremendous amount of energy.
Yes.
I needed that energy.
Yeah,
If I ate just 2 meals a day, I couldn't make it.
yeah.
I mean, you can't go out and do work like that.
Well,
My surmise.
and if you have to eat 3 meals a day, that's fine, if you're doing that much work. But most Americans nowadays aren't doing that.
I didn't gain any weight by eating 3 meals a day.
Right, right. But when people do get used to eating 2 meals a day, my dad thought he couldn't. For a long time, he was doing a lot of work at the retreat with firewood and stuff like that. So he was bucking up the firewood and splitting it.
In your
And
garden.
he did the most of that work because I had to do all the other stuff relating to the business and the computers and stuff he knows nothing about. And he thought he had to have 3 meals a day, but once he actually got on a 2 meal a day schedule, he could do that kind of work and be fine. Here's the thing, part of hunger is learned. And this is why what you just said about the meals being at the same time every day, that's actually important, especially if you're trying to lose weight. You should have your meals, your body actually starts to prepare itself for the next meal just because it knows when the next meal is coming. It's going to start the digestive enzymes flowing and the acid being produced and stuff like that because of the time. And what I see, I normally eat 2 meals a day, and once in a while I'll eat 3 meals a day, especially if I end up eating a lot earlier than I'm used to eating. But what happens is if I go visit my sister, for example, and they don't eat like we eat. I mean, they try to do a lot of the same kind of foods that we eat, but they don't eat the same time. I mean, they're way off schedule. And so they typically get up and eat breakfast for lunch, and they then they eat late in the evening. So usually I end up eating around 12 or 1 o'clock at her house. I don't make a big deal out of that. I just eat at 12 or 1 o'clock. But you know what I find? Normally I eat at 3:30. So I get to her house. I eat a meal at 12 or 1 o'clock. And you know what happens the next day? 12 o'clock? I am starving! I'm never hungry at 12 o'clock at home. Never. But I'm starving because why? My body said, hey, you ate at 12 o'clock yesterday? Give me some food again at 12 o'clock today. So part of it is learned. And if you learn and that's why it's important to be consistent. Because if you learn a different cycle, you'll be fine on it, usually. Like I said, I'm not saying you have to do 2 meals a day. It's better in most cases, but some people have to eat 3 meals a day. If you have to eat 3 meals a day, just try to space them right. Some people have a school or work and they have to have a different schedule than the 8:30 and 3:30 that we do. That's not a hard, fast rule. Adjust your schedule accordingly. But those are the principles that will help you lose weight and help you feel better. I feel way better on 2 meals a day than on 3 meals a day. Totally, my stomach, everything about me totally feels better on 2 meals than 3. Yes, Fred?
Doc asked the question, do the guests or the people that go eat for pay, do they work? Didn't you ask
I
that?
did.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry, I didn't actually get to that.
We need to
We have them in the summertime. Oftentimes we do purposeful labor for the exercise. Sometimes working in the garden or something like that, or leaves or weeds or something like that. But most of the time we're doing walking for exercise, and we are definitely exercising them. They're not doing heavy duty work like you would be doing on the farm when you were a kid, because most of these people are sick. A lot of times the people come and they can hardly walk from here to that back door when they first come. And by the time we're done with the program, they're walking 3 and 4 miles a day in 10 to 17 days. And they are blown away. They're like, I would have never guessed that I could walk that far by the end of this program. And so yes, we're working them. It's not like bucking hay, but they are expending energy.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, let's talk about just a few more tips for weight loss. This is just, in a way, almost summary. No snacks. Most of the time, people aren't really honest with themselves about how much they're eating with their snacks. Okay? They're not honest with themselves. No snacks, drink only water between meals. That means no juice. You can pack a tremendous amount of calories into your body with juice or pop or coffee or anything like that. Coffee full of cream and sugar. Tremendous amount of calories. So, and most of that is empty calories. I'm even talking about like 100% fruit juice, okay? Save that for special occasions. I'm not saying never eat any, drink any, I should say eat, because fruit juice is something that has to be digested, right? So I'm not saying never eat fruit juice, but save it for special occasions. Don't drink it all the time because you'll put in a tremendous amount of extra calories that you won't even think about. Drink only water between meals. If you're hungry between meals, drink water. It'll cut the hunger. Number 2, eat a good breakfast and moderate lunch. We already went over that. Eliminate the evening meal. If something must be eaten for an evening meal, whole fruit is all that's allowable. So most people watch what I do. It's one of those things that's, I guess, a negative of being a health reformer, right? People are like, look what he's eating. I try to be a good example. So most of you have probably noticed that I usually don't eat downstairs at night. It's too late. I have eaten twice in this time, but if you were watching, all I ate was fruit. That's all. So that's ideal, because fruit is much easier to digest than other things. It digests the fastest. Eliminate or at least greatly reduce refined sugar, fatty foods, and free fat in the diet while emphasizing foods high in fiber. We eat some oil. We serve some oil at the retreat. We serve some things with sugar in them. We give people some recipes for desserts. But just because we give a recipe at the retreat for a dessert doesn't mean we intended that you would eat that dessert every single day. Okay? We know that you're going to have some desserts sometimes. We want you to have a bit healthier alternatives, but the desserts are going to have some sugar in them, and you want to be still temperate. Yes?
This question actually comes from somebody who's watching online. She's asking about the 2 meals. Okay, so she understands breakfast, but she's wondering like when a good time would be for the second meal, the second and last meal of the day.
Yeah, you would generally at least 5 hours before bedtime. So usually, like we do 8:30 and 3:30, that's a reasonable thing. Or you could do 7:30 and 2:30, or you could do 6:30 and 1:30, and then you just don't eat for the rest of the evening. And generally, if you're hydrated enough, and you get used to that, and you're not on some kind of a different schedule. See, we've felt a little bit hungry a couple of times in the evening here because we're on a really way different schedule than what we're normally on. And we're staying here late, we're going home late, we're getting up late in the morning. We usually don't do any of that. And so, and we're in a different time zone. And so, if you're consistent and you're at home and you're doing your routine, you shouldn't have to feel hungry in the evening. And if you do, just take some water. Here?
Way easier on the cook.
Yes, yes, it's way easier on the cook. So remember, eating healthy is going to take more time and effort. Is that right? Yes. It's something you have to commit to. If you want health, you're going to have to learn how to cook better, and you're going to have to take some time to eat right. How are you going to handle that with a busy schedule? One way is to eat 2 meals a day. Because then the cook doesn't have to come up with creative 3 different meals, and there's less cleanup and all that. So that is one way to help make it easier. Yes?
I have a question. So I have low blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
My job is one where every day I go to a different time at work.
Oh, that's
And
hard.
every day I go to lunch at a different time.
Oh, yeah, that's
And
hard.
then by tonight, when I get here, I'm shaky.
Sure.
Because I've ate my lunch today at 12, where yesterday I ate at 3. So it's always up, down, up, down.
That's hard.
Is that possibly causing that?
It could be contributing to it. Yeah. What's that?
Train your supervisor.
Train your
Take over
super.
scheduling.
Take over scheduling. Yeah. It could be contributing because when your body is not getting a consistent timing, it's hard for you not to be hungry in between. Because the body thinks it's supposed to eat the last time it ate the previous day.
And when my blood sugars are
Yeah.
down to 70, I'm in trouble. I'm
Yeah,
sick.
sure.
And I don't know how well should I let that go,
Yeah.
I push through it.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I find helps for a lot of people, and I don't know for sure, you'll have to try it. Everybody's different. But one thing that can be super helpful is to drink the water. And literally your blood sugar will come up when you drink water. And most people are going like, how does that work? Because there's no sugar in water. Drinking water brings up your blood sugar.
Yes.
It's because your body needs the hydration in order to get the sugar to the cells where it belongs and get it into the cells. Literally, I have to remind myself this sometimes too. My wife and I went on a strenuous hike all the way around a lake. We were camping. I got back from that hike and I must have been dehydrated. I didn't even really realize it. And I get back to the car and all of a sudden I am hit with low blood sugar like I usually do not get. And I'm like shaking. I start sweating. I'm like, whew, I think I'm going to pass out. And I'm like starving. I'm like, I hit rock bottom. And it was too early for lunch. I didn't want to start my digestion. I knew it was going to take us at least an hour to get lunch ready. I didn't want to eat and then eat again an hour later. Just eat a snack to bring my blood sugar up. So I went and did what I tell my patients to do. And I drank like more than this bottle at one time. It was a bigger bottle than this. Drank the whole thing down.
That helped raise.
10 minutes, all the symptoms of low blood sugar gone. Gone. Now I still had a good appetite for the lunch, and we made lunch, and we ate, about an hour, hour and a half later. But it fixes low blood sugar, usually.
If you're not on insulin. Don't
Yes,
do that.
if you're-
Don't do that if you're
Mhm.
on insulin and, if you-
Right, insulin is another story, because the insulin is going to be, if you inject insulin or something like that and you didn't eat enough for how much you put in,
Yeah, don't expect water to fix it.
then that could be a serious issue. So it's a little bit more tricky for diabetics, but if you're not totally diabetic, as in the high blood sugars, but just having the low blood sugar symptoms, the water can often be the solution.
Water, drinking lemons with water, does that have any effect on the digestion system?
You have to digest it. You have to digest it. Some people say, oh, I don't like the taste of water. Learn to like it. You need it. It's what God gave to
You acquire a taste for it.
you can learn to like it.
Yeah.
That's right.
If I look
Yes.
like it, anybody.
You were talking about the dessert, and in our culture, we don't really have dessert, but we have fruit. So my
Okay.
question is, when is the best time to eat fruit?
Okay, so that's getting into a whole nother can of worms. And I wasn't even going to address that.
Only if the worms are in the fruit, right?
Okay, well, I'll tell you a missionary joke, for instance, you brought that up, Fred. They say in Africa that when you're a new missionary, you see a bug in your soup and you throw out the soup. And after you've been there for a while, you see a bug in your soup and you throw the bug out and finish eating the soup. And after you've been there for a little while longer, pretty soon you see the bug in your soup and you just eat the bug and everything. Now you know you've been in the mission field too long when you start putting the bugs in the soup. Okay, so extra credit. I didn't want to put this burden on you, but I guess I will. Ideally, you want to eat things together that digest at a similar speed. Fruit digests fastest, grains next fastest, vegetables next fastest, meats super slowest, and cheese the ultimate most slow of anything that you could possibly eat. So if you eat something that digests very fast with something that digests quite a bit slower, the stuff, and you eat them together, the stuff that digests very fast ferments and rots in your stomach, causes gas, releases toxic byproducts in your stomach. It's just not good for you. It contributes to impatience and irritation. So ideally, you would combine fruits and grains are fine because the fruits are here and the grains are here. Grains and vegetables would be fine, but vegetables and fruit are a little too far apart. The fruit is going to digest way too fast for the vegetables and cause fermentation. And same way with anything else down the line, the meat or the cheese is going to really slow down the digestion and cause serious fermentation if it's eaten with stuff that digests a lot slower. So fruit would not be ideal for a follow-up to a vegetable-style meal. But the same thing kind of goes really for dessert, because dessert has got a lot of refined sugar in it. Even if you're making a homemade dessert where the sugar's a lot less than it is from the store, you're still putting a lot of sugar in. So eating a dessert at lunchtime is probably going to give you a lot of issues as well. So when we make an apple pie, which we don't do all the time, but we do sometimes, we usually eat it for breakfast. Because then we're putting the fruit with the fruit meal. So, again, I wasn't even going to talk about that, but since you asked that, I'm just telling you the ideal. If you're still struggling with the idea of how am I going to get off excitotoxins, leave the food combining till another time, all right?
When do you eat watermelon? We have a struggle with that sometimes, but watermelon's kind of the meal, is that the best eaten then for the noon meal? I mean, the 2 o'clock, that's what we...
I would eat it for breakfast.
You do?
Yeah.
And then you don't have anything else with it?
Or if you're going to eat
What do you
a
combine
third
that?
meal,
No, I'm not.
and you're only going to eat fruit, that would be the perfect thing to eat. Watermelon.
For breakfast.
That's, well, for the third meal. Or for breakfast, yeah. Watermelon's a fruit. It's going to digest fast. So eat it with breakfast or eat it as a third meal if you have to have a third meal.
But if you eat it for breakfast, you don't have much long-lasting energy.
Well, presumably you're going to eat more than just watermelon.
What do you eat with it? That's the question we have.
Any other fruit you like, or any other grain, or eat your whole breakfast thing. Yeah, sure.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rob.
Just real quick, where do nuts fall in that? Can you eat that with fruit? or
Right. Yeah. Thank you for
veggies?
your nuts and your legumes fall in with the grains.
Nuts and legumes.
Yeah. They fall in with the grains mostly. There might be some nuts which are almost a little more toward vegetables, but they probably fall in the grains. So for example, your nut milk, you could do a nut milk or a soy milk, and that could go good with breakfast because the soy milk is a legume, but it's in about the same category as your grains. Yeah.
Fruit and grains can go together.
Yes.
Or grains and veggies.
Yes.
Don't fall together.
Right. That's ideal. Yes.
Does cooked food digest faster than raw?
Yes. In general, depends on what it is.
We couldn't hear the question.
Does cooked food digest quicker than raw? And it probably does because the heat has already started to soften it up and start to break it down.
With the same amount of fiber is there?
Some fiber is probably destroyed with cooking, but it's not completely destroyed. We're not telling people to have a completely raw diet, and we think that the average American should eat a lot more raw foods than they do, but some people want to put people on only a raw diet, and you could probably reverse diabetes or lose weight quicker that way, but is it sustainable? Is somebody going to stay on a raw diet for even a year. Probably not. And there's a lot of things that should actually be cooked in order for you to get the nutrients. Grains, especially, and beans. I mean, who's going to eat a raw bean? I mean, I guess they sprout them, but yes.
What happens, we know that vitamins are lost in the extended cooking. What happens to protein if you cook it a lot, like beans? Does that lose a lot of, can protein be lost in cooking?
It doesn't lose a lot of it. Proteins can be denatured to some degree with a lot of cooking, but you'll still have protein there. You have some examples of, as I mentioned the other night, your apricots get sour when you cook them or freeze them because it's a protein that's the sweetener. And so obviously some of that protein is being denatured. But you're not going to be destroying all the protein by cooking. You don't want to overcook your food. You want to cook it properly. And your vegetables especially should be steamed like they kind of steam the vegetables at a Chinese restaurant. You know, almost raw, not raw, but still a little crunchy. That's ideal for your vegetables for sure. All right, I'm sure we have more questions, but maybe I'd better finish a few more slides. I'm almost done here. So this actually I think was going to come up as a question because we were talking about the timing of meals. This is the length of the night fast. So notice how the people who had only 7 to 11 hours of a night fast were gaining weight. The ones who had 12 to 17 were about even, and the ones who had 18 to 24 were losing the most. So the longer your night fast, the better you can lose weight. And this is one of the reasons for eating 2 meals a day. You see, it makes no sense to eat in the evening because your body is eating for energy and you don't need energy to go to sleep. So your body says, I don't know what to do with all this food. It's time to go to bed. I'm just going to store it in the fat bank. And so when you have that long time, and that's why I know some of you were almost incredulous, like you're thinking, what? I'm going to eat at 7 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon and not eat again till breakfast? Yes, that's what I mean. Because if you have that long period of time between the last meal and the breakfast of the next day, it's almost like you're doing an intermittent fast every day. And people are actually better able to control their blood sugar, which I'm not talking about yet. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow night, but I'll give you a sneak preview. They're better able to control their blood sugar on 2 meals a day than 6 meals a day. And I'll show you the research for that. It doesn't seem intuitive, I know. And that's why your doctors tell you something that's totally unscientific, because it sounds intuitive. But it's not right. It's not right that 6 meals work better than 2 meals. So intermittent fasting is very efficient for weight loss. It helps reset your metabolism. And you can do some very good things with that. Now, I'm going to tell you something that I haven't had much clinical experience with. But I just found this recently. I must have found it a long time ago, but I just reread it. And I was so amazed by it that I put it into this lecture. This is an article in the journal Medical Hypotheses, and he's using pantothenic acid, which is vitamin B5, as a weight-reducing agent. And because I was lecturing on fasting without hunger, this went right into what I was saying. So apparently, large doses of vitamin B5 provide the components necessary in the citric acid or Krebs cycle to efficiently metabolize fat. Vitamin B5 is actually one of those cofactors that are needed to actually create energy in the Krebs cycle. And because most of us are deficient in it, because remember, we don't get enough sun because we're in all the time. I didn't do my sunshine lecture. I won't be. There's so many things I could talk about or would have liked to have talked about, but there's only so much I can do, okay, in this period of time. When you get vitamin D, you need vitamin D, and one of the things you need vitamin D for is your gut bacteria needs vitamin D. And they die without it. The good ones die without it. And so the good ones are the ones that are making your B vitamins for you. So if you get vitamin D deficient because you're not in the sunshine, you're going to get deficient in all your B vitamins because your gut bacteria is going to die off. So we're all sitting inside all day long, every day. We don't get enough sun. We're not farmers like we used to be. We're not bucking hay, right? And so we don't get the vitamin D, and so our gut bacteria dies off, and we have all kinds of problems, including problems with weight loss. So this is very interesting. He said the vitamin B apparently B5 provides the components necessary in the citric acid cycle to efficiently metabolize fat to provide energy for regular activities while in a caloric deficit without hunger. Because it's actually using the fat for energy. You see, what happens normally when you start burning fat is it starts putting you into ketoacidosis, or ketosis is what I should say. If you go acidic with it, that's the kind of the end stage of it. But ketosis is what you're going into when you're burning fat, and it's not an efficient way of getting energy. So when you stop eating, it kind of doesn't make sense. You would think that when you stop eating, your body would need to get energy from the stored fat. And bears are good at doing this, right? They fatten up for the winter, and they stop their metabolism during the winter, and they can just be not hungry for months. And they can just use the energy of all that stored fat. Our bodies doesn't do that properly, apparently partly because of pantothenic acid deficiency. And so what he was doing in this article, you can look it up and read it. It's not a long article. He was giving them high doses of B5, 10,000 milligrams a day, in 4 divided doses, 2,500 milligrams per dose, 4 times a day. And now listen, I want you to understand this correctly, okay? It's not an appetite suppressant. This is not something you're going to take that much vitamin B5 and just eat like you normally eat and expect it's going to make you lose weight. That's not the point. What it's doing is it's helping you to use the fat for energy. So if you go into a caloric deficit or do intermittent fasting, you can stop eating, take the B5. Apparently, according to him, like I said, I haven't had clinical experience with this yet. I plan to try it sometime. You can stop eating for a day or 2 days, or go down to a 1,000-calorie diet, some serious caloric deficit. Take that level of B5, and it will give you the energy from the fat instead of going into ketosis. When you go into ketosis, you just waste the energy, and it doesn't really get efficiently turned into energy, so you feel hungry, and you feel shaky, and you feel starved, and you don't have enough energy to do anything you have to do. And so the idea here would be to provide the energy by giving the B5 from the fat that you're burning, and actually use that for energy so that you're not starving and you have enough energy to do what you're doing when you're in that caloric deficit. Is that clear? Does anybody have any questions about that? Yes. 10,000 milligrams.
4 times a day?
No.
Is that what you said?
Divided in 2,500.
10,000 milligrams divided in 4 doses.
Uh-huh.
2,500 milligrams 4 times a day.
And I would be super cautious about trying to do that.
Yeah. This was medically supervised. This was a doctor in Hong Kong who was doing this. He said he had great success at helping people lose weight. So I'm just telling you what's in the scientific literature. I'm not telling you to do this. I'm just saying this might have some interesting potential.
Notice this is Department of General Surgery. They're probably doing bypass surgery so people can lose weight, that kind of thing. And so they're, meat surgery.
Yeah, you don't want to do a gastric bypass. Please don't do that.
Very bad.
Acid though, is that also, wasn't that also that helps with sleep?
Yes, yes. And that was a question that came to my mind when I read the article, because it is possible, according to some of the other articles that I've read, for the B5 to eventually get to levels that would interfere with sleep when you get too much. So my question was, is this going to eventually start interfering with sleep? And it could. So just read the article. I think I think it has some useful information. Like I said, I don't have experience with it yet, so I'm not recommending it. I'm just telling you that it exists, okay?
We
Yes.
talked about the high protein content of spinach.
Yes.
Then I've heard a cautionary tale about the salicylic acid.
Oxalic acid.
Oxalic, yeah,
Yes.
okay, oxalic, yeah.
Salicylic acid is aspirin, and that comes from a tree, willow, yes.
Oxalic, yes.
The oxalic acid, yes, spinach has oxalic acid. It actually kind of blocks some absorption of calcium and stuff like that. And it can cause some problems if your body has way too much oxalic acid. I wouldn't worry about that too much, as long as you're eating a good variety of stuff. It doesn't really matter if you block some calcium once in a while, just eat some spinach. If you decide to eat nothing but spinach, you might have some problems.
You might have problems.
Yes. Okay. Fred. Did you have a question there?
No,
Oh.
he just wanted me to hold it.
Oh, okay, okay. Yes.
He's microphone B.
I think they want to try to mic the people who are asking the questions so that people online can hear this. We didn't do that faithfully from the beginning today, but sorry about that for those of you who are online.
Does make a big difference whether the spinach is cooked, or do you probably best eat it raw?
I don't think that changes the oxalic acid,
Okay.
but I don't know that for sure. Okay. Few more slides here. Dr. Dean Ornish says, evidence is accumulating that a low-fat vegetarian diet may not only help prevent the onset of heart disease and stroke, but also some of the most common cancers, including breast, prostate, colon, lung, and ovarian cancers. Vegetarians also have lower rates of osteoporosis, adult-onset diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and many other illnesses. Dr. Joel Furman says, when we look at the subset who had followed a vegetarian diet for at least half their life, it appeared that they lived about 13 years longer. What if you could buy 13 years of extra life? Good quality life.
And better,
Yeah, better quality.
not just longer.
And by the way, when he says vegetarian there, he's meaning total vegetarian. The lacto-ovos live a little bit longer, but they end up with many of the same diseases that the people who are eating meat get. They just get them a few years later. Because a lot of the diseases, as we see from the China study, are caused by animal protein intake. And here is the chairman of the nutrition department at New York University. Most of the time, people who are scientists say very, very conservative statements, and they don't really, they say this could have some impact, or this, because they think that you can never prove something for sure in science. Well, listen to this statement from a scientist. There is no question that vegetarian diets are as healthy as you can get. The evidence is so strong and overwhelming and produced over such a long period of time that it is no longer debatable. That's a pretty amazing statement. And if you want information, scientific information to back that up, I've given you some, but read that China study book. Because there's overwhelming evidence there, really. If you're still wondering if that's isn't just a little too crazy, read that book. Because it's tier 1 science, and it's amazing stuff what is happening. Dr. Campbell says in the China study, I have come to see that the benefits produced by eating a plant-based diet are far more diverse and impressive than any drug or surgery used in medical practice. Can you imagine? I'm sure that a doctor would be maybe offended if I said this, and I hope if there's any listening that they aren't offended. But you know more about how to maintain health and reverse disease than the average physician. Now, some physicians are very, very knowledgeable about this kind of thing, but it's always because they're self-taught on the subject, because they don't teach this stuff in medical school. What about endurance? People are going to think, oh, I'm not going to have enough energy. Well, they did a study here. This was published in Nutrition Today. The people on the vegetarian diet had the most energy, the most endurance. Way more than the meat eaters. But what if I want to make muscles? This is Mr. Bill Pearl, a vegetarian, former Mr. America and Mr. Universe at age 55. Now, I'm not saying you have to look like that, but I'm just saying, if you want to make muscles, you can still do it on a vegetarian diet. You do not have to have meat in order to be strong. An elephant is very strong too, right? Not just a lion. All right, here's some books for further study. Obviously, the China Study is at the top. I've told you about that already. Mad Cowboy by Howard Lyman and Mad Cows and Milkgate by Virgil Hulse are excellent resources. And Counsels on Diet and Foods by Ellen G. White. And here is what the China Study looks like. I'm sorry, did you miss that? Yep. And this is what the most recent edition of the China Study looked like. There's an earlier edition, but you probably want the recent one. All right. Couple more minutes for questions, and then we'll call it a night, if there are any.
I just make a comment.
Okay?
I was a masonry contractor. Some of you know, how many of you know Jim Oliver? Okay. I don't think I need that,
You
but
need that
anyway.
for the audio.
They want the people online to be able to hear
Oh, I
you.
see, okay. Anyway, we would eat a meal, get to work. In the morning, we'd stop, we took no breaks at all. Just, we'd eat the water, stay hydrated, and we'd work wide open, laying block. Now that, I guarantee that'll burn energy.
I don't think that mic is on.
I don't know how to turn it on.
What'd you do, turn it off?
There we go.
Just for you, Fred.
Anyway, it's a pretty good test because we didn't eat in the evenings, we didn't eat between meals. And even when I worked downtown, I was in charge of the downtown renovation, I told my crew, I said, we just get set up to lay block and mortar all mixed up and everything. I want to keep going. You can leave the job anytime you want, go to the restroom, or if you want to eat a snack, that's up to you. I didn't. And my assistant didn't either. And we were never hungry. We just ate noon meal, and then usually that was it for the day. And we didn't have any problem. So I know that what's being said here is absolutely true by experimental design, I guess you might say. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Fred. That's important. A lot of our sensations of hunger and our feeling of need to eat is learned. The body learns it.
And a lot of it, if you drink,
It's
if you drink
conditioned.
water, your hunger
Yeah.
can be misplaced for you're just really thirsty. Don't confuse the two because the one feels about the same as the other, doesn't it? Right?
Yes. Dehydration will make you feel hungry because you're literally going into low blood sugar when you get dehydrated. And the water can fix that. I'm having trouble here with this. It's just turning up. Okay, another question over here.
So my guess is a lot of people here are vegetarian. What vitamin B12 do you recommend? What brand? Because I know you said like the Walmart brands and that is not
Yeah,
good.
that's a good point. Okay, so let me address that just a little bit. So there is a big push that you only get vitamin B12 from animal foods. That's not entirely true. It can be in plant foods if it's in the soil that the plants are grown in. There's generally not a lot, but a lot of the B12 apparently gets produced in the gut, just like the other B vitamins. And so we see people on a regular basis who are severely B12 deficient and they're meat eaters. And so I don't have a good explanation for that necessarily, but I don't. If you're a total vegetarian, you probably want to keep track of your B12 level because you don't want to be too low because it can cause catastrophic problems if you're too low. But I think that there's a lot of things in our society that are contributing to these nutrient deficiencies rather than just the fact that people are not eating meat, if in the case of B12. So, but to answer your question specifically, the brand that we sell is pure encapsulations, and we use their adenosyl hydroxycobalamin. Most of the cheap vitamin B12s will be cyanocobalamin. Usually Walmart or Costco or something like that will be cyanocobalamin. That's a cyanide molecule connected to the cobalamin. I'm not necessarily saying that's toxic. I don't know exactly what effect that has. Cyanide is poisonous by itself. That doesn't automatically mean it's poisonous when it's hooked to a cobalamin, but it's not how it occurs in the body. It's just an easy way to produce it. So that was the only kind of B12 that was available for a long time. We recommend not using that one. So the forms that are in the body are either adenosyl cobalamin or hydroxycobalamin. Those are the best, those are the forms that we use, and the pure encapsulation has one that's a combination of those two, adenosyl hydroxycobalamin. Methylcobalamin can be a good one, especially for somebody who has methylation problems, like an MTHFR genetic deficiency. But the methyl one, it's also a more natural form. It seems to cause a little more side effects. So I would probably stick with adenosyl hydroxy. That seems to be very effective. We've actually had taken people who were as low as 81 on their B12, and they were already having severe side effects, even starting to have paralysis of bowel and bladder, and taking them back from that to complete recovery by using, we started with intravenous, and then we transitioned them to this orally. And so that, if somebody gets that low, that has to be done as soon as possible, and it has to be done pretty aggressively. Your B vitamins, most of your B vitamins get quite a bit destroyed in the gut. So intravenous is the ideal way. Sublingual can help because it soaks straight into the blood before it gets to the gut. But when you're putting it in the gut, which this is a pill, so this is one that goes in the gut, you're basically taking way higher doses than what you would think would be reasonable. So 2 of these pills, they're 2,000 micrograms a piece, so 2 of them is 4,000 micrograms. That's about 82,000% of the recommended daily allowance. And you might be thinking, what on earth would you need 82,000% for? You need it if you're low, you're not going to get back up with diet, period. Doesn't matter how many eggs you eat, doesn't matter how much meat you eat, you are not going to raise up a low B12 with diet. If it's that low, not going to happen. Or at least it's not going to happen in a short enough time to prevent permanent damage. Yes?
So what was that brand?
Pure encapsulations. You can buy it on Amazon if you want.
Would you give them the normal range or the desired range?
Oh, I should. Thank you for that.
I was wondering if you could write that
You want-
down.
You want to have, pardon?
You could write down those big words you were saying, and the brand and the dosage, and give it to us tomorrow.
I'm going to forget that. There's just no way that's going to work. There's no way that's going to work. Here's what I'm going to do. I am going to put it right here on this slide, and you can take a picture of it right now. Okay. That's the one. Oh, I'm sorry, I misspelled that. I missed the L. There we go. Adenosyl, not adenosine. Adenosyl hydroxycobalamin. Usually we recommend people testing their levels, and we do testing at our retreat. And
Your doctor
Your-
can do that for you.
yeah, your doctor can do it. You can find a thing online where you can order it yourself if you don't want to go to a doctor. The labs will tell you 200 to 1,100 usually as the normal range, which is absurd that you could have normal health with a six-fold difference. I mean, that makes no sense. The reason it's like that is because they're not telling you how much you really need. They're telling you what they usually see. Okay, so they're actually looking at a bell curve and they're cutting off the outliers on the bell curve, and they're saying, well, this is about what would be within so many standard deviations on the bell curve. That's how they come up with that number. And so you really need to have it about 500 and above. 10% of all people who are at 400 will have overt symptoms of B12 deficiency, even though the lab says you're fine at down to 200. So if you're at 400, it's too low. It's too low. 10% of people will have symptoms of B12 deficiency at 400. So you need to be up 500, 600, 800, somewhere like that, or up to even 1,200.
So what are the
If-
symptoms of low?
Low B12 is usually numbness and tingling in the hands and feet is one of the first things, neuropathies. And it will progress to nerve swelling. It can cause lower back pain. It can cause carpal tunnel. It can cause, basically, when you're B deficient, the nerve starts to swell, and it starts to swell first in the place where there's been previous injury. And so, literally, people are going for back surgeries who are probably B deficient. Because you have to say, they say, oh, well, they have a herniated disc. Well, did you know that about 70% of people who have herniated discs have zero symptoms? They never even know it. They don't know the difference, and they have a herniated disc. So the question is, do they have a herniated disc? Do they have back pain because they have a herniated disc? Or do they have a herniated disc because they have back pain? You see, because if the nerve starts swelling, there is nothing that's going to alleviate that back pain, including the surgery, until you fix the nerve swelling caused by the B deficiency. And when that nerve starts to swell, guess what the back starts doing? Those muscles start to clamp down. Because it's inflamed, it's irritated, and the body is trying to keep it stable, and those muscles start to clamp down, and you know what that starts doing? It starts putting pressure on the disc. And you know what that starts doing? Herniated disc. I can't prove it, but I think that many herniated discs are just from a B deficiency. And the herniation becomes from the back pain, not the other way around. So they go in and they cut out part of that disc. Well, that's really great because the outside of the disc is really thick. And so now they cut off the edge of the disc. So now what have you got? You got a weak place where it's going to herniate again.
Not stable.
Mm-hmm. We fixed quite a number of serious back problems with B vitamins. Symptoms, dementia, confusion, all kinds of problems. It can progress. If you have the back pain and the nerve starts getting pinched off there and swollen enough, it starts paralyzing stuff that is controlled from that point in the spine down. So it could cause paralysis of the bladder, it can cause urination problems, it can cause incontinence, it can cause sciatic nerve. Yes, somebody had a question over here. Serious problems from B12, and I'm not even giving you everything it could be off the top of my head.
Can any of those problems be reversed by
Yes, if it's
getting
got quickly.
B12?
Yes, if it's got quickly. You only have about a year. If it's been going for more than a year, you might get some reversal. I wouldn't not give supplementation even if it had been going on for a long time, but you're much less likely to recover fully because the nerve damage can be permanent. But it's not just B12 that can do stuff like that. B6 will do the same thing. If you're low in B6, it'll cause nerve swelling.
So you have to take the B complex.
Ideally, you want the Bs together. The Bs are designed to be together. Yeah. Just a plain B complex is okay for maintenance, but generally a complex has too low of doses for really addressing a serious issue that's already there. So you get the patient repleted, and then you put them on the complex for maintenance.
Is this really from soil depletion primarily, or wrong?
Yeah, and
Soil chelation.
chelation.
Adam and
Ra-
Eve didn't have to take
Ra-
vitamin supplements.
Roundup is chelating nutrients. And so it's causing massive nutrient deficiencies all over because people are getting it ubiquitously in their diets. And so it's binding up the nutrients, and we're getting all these nutrient deficiency diets now. The gut's messed up. Splenda. I didn't give you my lecture on fake sugars. Go on my website and look at the lecture called Sweet Suffering. Splenda was originally invented as an insecticide. Splenda is so toxic you can't buy it by itself. Sucralose, I should say sucralose. Splenda is the sugar substitute. Well, Splenda is how you buy it. The sugar substitute is sucralose, but sucralose is so toxic you can't buy it by itself. And Splenda is only 1% sucralose. The rest is filler. You don't want to know what the filler is? No. Sugar.
What?
Sugar. It is 99% sugar. Splenda is 99% sugar and 1% insecticide. I'll take my sugar without the insecticide, please. Splenda causes massive gut disruption. It kills off the gut bacteria. It's toxic. You do not want to eat Splenda.
Saccharin, same thing.
Same. Saccharin is bad, but not quite as bad.
Stevia?
Stevia is one of the least objectionable, but it can apparently, in large doses, actually block carbohydrate absorption, which you don't want to do because that's what your body needs for energy.
So sweetener
So,
in desserts would be best.
sugar.
White sugar or cane sugar?
Organic cane sugar or maple syrup used in moderation. That's the problem. Yeah. We're in a society where everything is fake, right?
Yeah.
And we can't improve upon what God made. And it's true that God didn't make us to eat all this huge amounts of refined sugar. So don't go home and say that I told you to eat as much sugar as you want, right? It needs to be in moderation, but having some sugar.
An apple.
Yeah, have an apple. Yes.
Do you have any quick tips on how to gain weight in a healthy way?
Gain weight, all right.
Which is, I know that's not really what we're speaking of.
Sure.
3 meals a day.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say.
I can't seem to put weight on, so I'm kind of having a reverse problem.
Sometimes there could be a pathological problem going on if there isn't any ability to gain weight. But for the most part, I don't know that I would worry about it too much because, I mean, I know guys would like to bulk up their muscles and stuff, and be heavier in that way. But if you're strong because of exercise and you don't have that massive bulk.
What would you say 130 pounds is a healthy weight for a 35-year-old?
How tall are you?
5'10"?
5'10"? It's a little low. It's a little below. But I wouldn't say, what they actually see in the scientific literature is that caloric restriction and almost an underweight condition is associated with longevity. So, yeah. So as long as you're following healthy principles and eating a good diet, getting lots of good exercise, and you're not just like continuing to drop off down to 109 or something like that, if you maintain that, I wouldn't worry about it. Yeah. It's not a problem. Yes.
So since you mentioned that God has created the sugar cane, is there any legitimate use for tobacco?
No.
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 There is no.
No. So we live in a sinful world, And God originally created everything in the Garden of Eden, but Satan has been at work manipulating, and his agents have been at work. And so there are toxic things on this planet that there weren't there when God originally created the Garden of Eden. And so there are examples of many, many, many toxic plants, very toxic plants, plants that are so toxic you almost even touch it and you can die. And so just because it grows doesn't mean it's good for food. And so I know that it's popular right now for some people to be claiming that nicotine patches is a good treatment for long COVID. No. No, that's...
Matter of fact, that's worse.
That's absurd. That's absurd. With all due respect to the person who's promoting it. That's why we use inspiration to filter first the science, because the science can tell us all kinds of crazy things. All right, I know we had lots of questions tonight. Are we ready to wrap it up? All right, let's have a prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you for your wisdom and guidance, and we pray for your wisdom and guidance. We would like to honor you with our bodies, and we pray that you would help us to do that. Give us the courage and strength that we need. I pray that you give each person here special courage to try and step out into these things, and I pray that you would bless with overabundance of results, so that they can see clearly that these simple principles that you've given in your word are the best way to live. We ask that we would be blessed with that abundant health that you have told us that you wish above all things that we would have. Forgive us where we have failed in our appetites and passions, and give us the victory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Yeah.